In this video, we're going to be talking about comparison, what it is, why it's bad, and why you probably shouldn't be doing it to yourself. Coming up. Welcome back. My name is Jack. Thanks for tuning into the show. It's my goal to help creative music makers get better at making music at home. Now, a lot of things go into that. It's not just the software or the gear reviews or the tutorials, but it's also creativity and mindset, self-image stuff, and how we look at ourselves and look at the world. Now, these are some topics that are really important to me because I've struggled a lot with them. And comparison is something that's plagued me and my self-image for a very long time. Comparison has been a big monster in my life, and I can point back to as early as 13 or 14 years old when I first started aspiring to be a musician, when I started idolizing or looking up to musicians, and thus naturally started comparing myself to them. Now, that comparison has had various different effects on my self-image, on my life, on my success, and those are some things I want to talk about and I want to share with you in this video, as well as tips and advice on how I think you can combat comparison. Now, whether we're just meeting or if you're returning to my channel and you've seen some of my videos before, do me a huge favor and subscribe. It really would mean the world. I've got a lot that I want to share with you, my viewers, and getting my subscriber count up a bit would really help YouTube push my content out so more people can see it. All right, now the first negative effect that comparison has had on me was the idea that before I even put enough effort or time into my craft, I decided that I wasn't good enough. And this happens to a lot of people because when you compare where you're at now, which is usually the beginning or the middle of your journey, to someone else's middle or end of their journey, it's very, very easy to look at yourself and be like, I'll never be like them. A lot of times we see stars or artists and it seems as though they became successful or famous overnight. But the problem with that is 9 times out of 10, that's not true at all. We're never going to see the hours of effort that they put into something behind the scenes. It's just like you right now. No one might know who you are yet, but you're probably working really hard. And this time now is the time that other people, when they look at you and they say, oh, it was an overnight success, you can reference times like this moment right now. And that's the cool thing about it. The time and the energy that you put into yourself now will help you get to the top. And there's a meme that comes to mind, or an image that was circulating on the internet a while back that I remember that kind of illustrates this point, and I'll throw it up on the screen now. But if you look at it, you see the person that appears to be up on this pedestal, but you can't see behind it, and you can't see the journey and the failures illustrated by the broken plates that represent that person's climb to that point of success. So always keep that in mind. Don't hesitate to give yourself a break or some slack, and remember that the people that you see on the internet or you see on TV, they're there for a reason, and that reason is they worked very hard before you ever even heard of them. So keep that in mind. The second thing that has affected me deeply, and something that I want to share with you, is the idea that under no circumstances should you expect to succeed overnight. The reason for that is that everyone has to do the work. Everyone has to put in the time and put in the effort. It's not fair to think that you deserve to succeed without doing your fair share of work to get there. Now, some people might be more lucky than others in the sense that they might run into opportunities that other people might not have run into. Some people have more financial freedom starting out. So there are factors like that, but at the end of the day, I believe that hard work and dedication and consistency over time are the only things that matter. So regardless of where anyone else is, regardless of where your idols are at, always focus on where you are now and put in the work, even if it's going to take time, because that's okay. The third element of comparison that really negatively affected me when I was younger was the idea that if I didn't succeed already, I'm not going to succeed in the future. When I was 15 or 16, I would compare myself to musicians or artists that were 15, 16, 17 that were blowing up, millions of followers, millions of views. And I thought, well, he's 16 and I'm nobody, so therefore I failed. I missed the boat and I didn't make it. And the idea that I want you to remember here is that everyone succeeds or fails on their own time. And just because someone is younger than you and has millions of followers doesn't mean that you're not going to eventually reach that goal, but maybe a little later in life. And that's totally okay because one, a lot of those child stars, it's very hard for them to maintain that level of success and popularity the rest of their career. And two, it can be very negative to reach success at that young of an age. We're not developed, we don't know ourselves very well yet, we're not really in tune with the world, and our self-image tends to be fragile, and it can crush a lot of people. That's why you see tons of child stars turn to alcoholism or drug use, because they just don't know how to cope with the pressure that comes from that. So I would definitely encourage you to find peace in the fact that in a lot of ways, it actually can be better to figure yourself out, give yourself some time to learn who you are, learn to love yourself before thrown into that pressure, because that in a lot of ways isn't a gift, but it's a burden. Another element of this topic that I've dealt with is the idea that if I'm 20 and I want to be successful, then by the time I'm successful, I'll probably be 25, and that's too old, so I shouldn't try now. I should have tried earlier. This is a trap I've fallen in a lot and has led me to waste a lot of time, and something I deeply regret, because at the end of the day, you can't live in regret, and you can't wish you started something earlier, because the only time you have is the present. So make sure you start today, you start now, and you don't let anything like that hold you back, because I've wasted a lot of time doing that. For example, with YouTube, I've wanted to start YouTube for probably 3 or 4 years now, and I've only started taking it seriously a month ago. And the reason for that is I would say things like, man, but if I start YouTube now, I won't be successful for another 2 to 5 years, so why start now? It's gonna take too long. I'll be too old when I'm successful, there's no point. But then you realize years go on, you don't put any effort into your goal, and you still have that desire to work towards something and be successful. But that date that you set in your head that's arbitrary to begin with ends up being pushed further back and further back and further back. And you're like, man, I'm 24 now. Had I started at 19 when I thought it was too late, I would be in a much better spot now than I am today. You live and learn. So keep that in mind for sure. So I've kind of lost count. Maybe this is idea number 4, maybe it's number 5. But the last idea I want to share with you, and something that I've dealt with a lot with comparison, is perfectionism and how that's affected me due to my constant comparison with others. I found that when you're always comparing yourself to other people's best work, it's very easy to doubt your ability, doubt whether or not you can accomplish something. And because of that, the barrier to work towards a project gets so high and you put so much pressure on yourself. 1, you start less projects. 2, you likely finish nearly no projects, and the ones you do finish, you probably have a really hard time finishing because you're hard on yourself, you need it to be perfect, you need everything you do just to be your best work, you put out much less work, so you make much less progress, and it's just a mess to begin with. So be careful with perfectionism. It's a monster, it'll get you. Make sure, whatever you're doing, you don't need to spend a year on a project, but give yourself a good deal of time, do the best you can within that time, and once that time is up, accept where you're at, put it out, and move on to the next project. Because as long as you keep growing and innovating and moving on to the next and the next and the next thing, progress will happen, growth will be made, and you'll start achieving success. But that's never going to happen if you don't put out consistent projects. I've spent years on songs that I've never released. Some of my favorite songs that I've ever made are not released and aren't even finished because I set such a high standard for how I wanted that song to turn out that although I love it how it is now, it's not finished because I keep telling myself it needs to be better, it needs to be better, it needs to be better. And it just gets you nowhere. So there's a few little motivational quotes that I like to remind myself, and just ideas that have stuck out to me throughout my life. And one of those is action beats fear. I think this is really important. It's the idea that if you're not starting, you're not working hard, you're not progressing, it's very easy to get afraid of doing those things. So punching fear in the face, the best way to do that is just to start creating. And I have a video on that. I'll link right here. And another one is move fast and break things. And I've heard it a lot, but the idea here is you just want to be as creative as possible, do as much as possible, put out as much as possible. In the process, you'll make mistakes, but you'll grow and you'll learn what works and what doesn't. And that's okay, because in the creative field, as long as you keep at it, as long as you're intuitive and you pay attention to feedback and you pay attention to your progress and you're self-aware, as long as you do those things, you'll keep getting better. The best and fastest way to do that is to make a heck of a lot of content. And the final quote I want to share is one that I think I heard first from Peter McKinnon, who is a great YouTuber and vlogger and into photography and video stuff. I'm sure you heard of him. If you haven't, you should check him out. And that is the idea that done is better than perfect. This resonates with me a lot, and this has been part of my motivation for taking YouTube seriously. I'll sit back and I'll wait because I'm comparing myself to him, for example, or other YouTubers, and I'll tell myself, yeah, you shouldn't start because your videos won't ever look as good as those. Well, guess what? They don't, but that's okay, because as I do this, I learn, I get better, I learn what works, I learn what doesn't. You guys give me feedback, which helps me progress and grow, and that's why I'm always so adamant about asking you to subscribe or comment, because me talking to a camera day in and day out, I don't learn all that much. I might learn how to do it better or quicker, but I'm not learning what works as well as I am by looking at analytics or your feedback. So it is really important. Take that minute or two and let me know your thoughts. Give me some suggestions. Even if you've never seen one of my videos before, even if this is the first one, it would mean a bunch and I really would appreciate it. All right, well, those were some ideas. I know I'm just scratching the surface. I could go way deeper on this topic, but hopefully some of those things resonated with you or provided value and can start leading you in the right direction and down a path of no comparison, no perfectionism, and just hard work and creativity and making the most of life and following your dreams. If you did enjoy this video and it provided value, please do me such a solid favor and like, comment, and subscribe below. It makes a huge difference. It motivates me, it encourages me, and it really helps me see that I'm making an impact, and that's what I'm here to do. So thank you all so much. Those of you who have supported me already, I'm doing this for you, so thank you. If you would stick around, maybe click on one of my other videos. I've got a bunch of stuff on music and creativity and productivity. But thank you all so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.